our audience will love to hear from you. And thank you very much. And Faisal, you can continue. Thank you, man.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ashraf Jawan Ujjwal, be with us and for your valuable time. We are really grateful to you. Thank you, sir. Ma'am.
Thank you. So I'm leaving,
this is the first
but
time.
I will watch.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am, very first time, Arthur Amanda give her interview in Bangladesh. How was the feelings now?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, it's a horrible time with everything that's going on, but what is good is how connected we can be. So it's great to be able to speak to you in Bangladesh, even though we've kind of gone through a difficult time to get this opportunity, but really, really grateful for the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we start our discussion, ma'am. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Ma'am, you know, a lot of time Bangladesh facing lot of crises like natural crisis, like economical crisis, lot of it is etc. We have a lot of option if we want to tell. This time we are facing in hidden enemy like coronavirus. Can you little tell about that? What's going on in future globe?
I think this is a very different set of circumstances than we've probably seen with any other crisis that any country's faced. As you said, it's something we can't see. So we've all got to change parts of the way we behave and distance and wear masks and gloves. And this is very unusual, and it's difficult for people, I think, to understand and start to work differently, behave differently. It's going to take quite a time, I think, before we really start to move forwards. We're sort of at the moment just in the middle of dealing with the immediate issues, but this is going to be with us for a while, isn't it? And it's going to take quite a bit of thinking through to be able to deal with it going forward, and that's not easy for anybody anywhere, I don't think.
Okay, ma'am, you are a big author and you research so many years. So please tell about us crisis communication. What is crisis communication?
Yeah, it's really straightforward for me. It's just, we face businesses, organizations face lots of risks. There's lots of potential problems that they can encounter. And what crisis communication is about is planning for that, preparing so that you are ready to deal with problems that might arise. And from the communication side, it's focused on, for me and my approach, it's about making it focused on the people who have been affected or are going to be affected by what's happened, and really focus on what you can do to support them and speak to them and help them through the crisis, because that's the most important thing. A lot of work in past years on crisis communication has focused on organisations and what they need, and on having plans and procedures. What I want people to do is think about people who are affected and look at that as being the focal point for what you do, and make that the kind of focus. So that's very much what crisis communication's about: planning, dealing with something when it happens, but then also being able to deal with the aftermath, and that may take some time. And with something like COVID-19, that's going to be years potentially that we're getting towards what we would call recovery.
Okay, ma'am. Tell about crisis communication management. How
Yeah,
we management the crisis.
that's
Manage
what
the crisis.
it's for me, it's about being proactive, making sure that you're getting information out quickly to people, that they're understanding what's happening, so that you can tell them what they need to do to protect themselves, if they need to take some action to protect themselves and make sure they're safe. But also you can then work with them as things go forward, so that they're able to understand what that means and look at what the future might need to become or look like. So that effectively is what it's about, being, for me, being very proactive, and speaking to people and being really as open as you can be, giving as much information as you can, so that people understand what's happening. And more importantly, if you're a business or an organization or a government, they can then support you, they can work with you to get through it, because that's the key we want to do, isn't it? Is get from where we are within the crisis to get through it, in as positive a way as we possibly can.
Ma'am, you are author of crisis communication strategies. Tell about your profession and your emotion.
Yeah. So I'd worked for quite a few years for police. I'm not a police officer. I'd worked as a civilian member of staff, supporting the communication between the police and the people in that they served in that area. And what I'd done over many years is deal with quite a lot of serious incidents and crisis. So it felt for me that the time was right to put 2 decades, 20 years of experience into producing the book. And that's what I did, spent 18 months writing, researching the book, so that I could look at covering everything from planning to right through to the recovery phase. And the book came out at the start in May this year.
Ma'am, which this book just this year launched. It took time 20 years for finalized published, right?
Well, I've had 20 years of crisis experience, that's that's kind of gone into the book. That when I wrote the book, it was all that experience that's been within that.
Then this is the most important and valuable book. If the properly it launched, then I think this book is more effective for crisis communication, because 20 words, lot of experience in this book, if I think so.
Yeah, I would hope there's a lot of information in there, and practical information about what to do and how to deal with things. That's what I aim to do, is put as much practical information in there as possible.
Ma'am, little bit tell about your Amanda Coleman communication. Which type or organization is it?
Yeah, so what I'm looking to do now is to work with businesses and organisations and help them either prepare so that they are ready for whatever issue or crisis they may face, as well as give them support in the middle of a crisis if they need advice and assistance, and also then help them work through the recovery phase. At the moment, that's a lot of the work I've been involved with, is working with people who are looking at how do they communicate from a crisis position of dealing with COVID-19 into a recovery phase and start to move forward. So that's what I'm doing, and that's what my business is about now.
Okay, then you organization work only for UK people, or you organization work whole full country, work in the your outside of your country?
Yeah, at the moment, yeah, I've got some work obviously in the UK, but I think partly because of the way we can use technology more now, I've got some connections into America and Canada and Europe. So there's I'm for me, I think whilst everywhere's got slightly different cultural elements, a lot of the approach works across different countries. So yeah, I am happy to and want to really work across the world as much as possible.
Then you know, in Bangladesh we are facing the COVID challenge. You know, our Prime Minister strongly faced the situation, and they try to doing lot. Our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina tried to do lot, and he stays strong with the community, with the people of Bangladesh. But the people we are not much aware. So, what is your advice for this situation? How we can, or how we apply the situation for awareness? We can tackle the situation. How can we apply awareness?
I think it's a very difficult and complex situation at the minute to balance the health issues and also look at the economic situation. And you know, it's not easy for anybody to try and do that. But I think the key for me in terms of communication elements of where we are is to keep talking to people and really start to listen to what people who are being affected are saying, because that'll help. I think it's very easy to just tell people things, tell them what they need to do, or tell them what you want them to do. And actually, we need to be listening to what people are saying about how they are feeling about the situation and what their concerns are and what their worries are, to then look at how we can support them and work through this, because it's going to take some time and it isn't going to be easy. So, you know, I think for me at the minute, it's about trying to be proactive and listen to people and learn from what they're saying to be able to develop the actions that need to come in the weeks and months ahead.
Ma'am, your crisis communication and reputation management, can you tell between the difference of the both subject, crisis communication and reputation management, which is the most effective or valuable for us?
The key for me is the crisis communication, open, talking to people and focused on the people who are being affected by whatever has happened. Reputation is part of that. Reputation is important. It's, you know, because you've got to, if you've got a good reputation, people want to work with you, they trust what you're saying, and that's all really critical for going forward. My concern often comes when businesses or organizations focus on their own reputation above everything else. Because if you're looking to protect your reputation, you're potentially going to make decisions that will be wrong for the situation, because it'll not take account of everything else that's going on. So whilst it's an important element, the bigger picture for me has to be about effective crisis communication.
Okay, ma'am, more than 20 years you have worked on the inside with a range of police and civic leaders and help them respond to some of the UK biggest crisis incidents and sustain the reputational attack. Tell about us about your experience on that time.
Yeah, I mean, it's really been it's been a very busy very busy challenging time in lots of respects. I really enjoyed working in the police. I think you had an opportunity to really help people, and that was one of the things that kept me going doing the job there. But when I was there, we dealt with riots. Sadly, we had police officers that were murdered. And 3 years ago, I was responsible for leading the communication after the Manchester Ariana Grande terrorist attack. So it's a busy area, and it was a really busy job.
And when you face that challenge, the terrorist attack, how you handle the situation?
It's interesting because actually the experience that I had really pushed me to write the book. So, like I said, I've got a lot of experience, but it was the learning out of dealing with that incident, and particularly the importance of focusing on the people who were affected, that spurred me on to actually write the book. The key with dealing with that was very much around, as well as it being a crime, a criminal investigation that had to happen. What was most important was the impact it had on the hundreds of people who were there, who were around the vicinity, and obviously there were 22 people who lost their lives and their families. So yeah, it was the way I approached it, the way I talk about it. It was very much what I focus on in the book, which is making sure that the people were at the forefront, and from an employee perspective, for the police officers who were there, as much as for the people who were caught up or had loved ones that were hurt or sadly who died at the concert.
Ma'am, this is the big challenge for the world. The terrorists all over the world is the alarming for safe living. We all know, in Bangladesh, in India, in Pakistan, there is a lot of terrorists are there, and a lot of unsafe life. We feel uncomfortable. So, ma'am, you work as a head of corporate communication, Great Manchester Police, over 18 years. You have a lot of memory, lot of experience. Can you share a good memory with us? And how was the journey with Great Manchester Police? How you feeling?
Yeah, it was. I really enjoyed the job. It was, as I say, because it was always different, because there was always a lot happening. It was a really interesting job, and I really enjoyed doing it. I think the biggest kind of positive, good things that happened was very much when we were able to really engage and start conversations and talk with people who lived and were working in the area that we covered. You get so much from being able to support victims of crime. And when it was really positive, you would be able to help the police officers to get the information to solve crime. So all that made it really enjoyable, very stressful, very pressured, but also, as I say, very, very rewarding when you could see the benefits of what we were doing, working with the media, working using social media, and and getting out for face-to-face communication. Which was much easier to do then than it is now, unfortunately.
Oh, this is the really passionate job. Everyone have target. I am pilot. I am doctor. I am engineer. But when someone getting job in Manchester police, then it's really honorable and respectable, I think. What is your
Yeah,
opinion?
yeah. I mean, it's good if you I can deal with the pressure because it's high pressure. But then you do see you can see a real positive impact that you can have even in the most horrific and sometimes really challenging circumstances.
Any good memory, ma'am, you have and you want to share, which you not share with other?
I don't know whether I mean there was so much because over nearly 20 years, there's so many things that you deal with. I think one of the things that sticks out in my mind happened actually nearly 10 years ago, and we decided to tweet out every incident that we had over 24 hours. And it was to show the pressure that was on policing and how much demand there was for policing services. And we did. So we started at like 5 o'clock in the morning and with a small team worked right through for the full 24 hours. And it went global. People were really interested in, not just the difficult things that we were dealing with, but all the things that really shouldn't have ever uh, been sent through. Things that people shouldn't have called the police to deal with. So that was amazing because we could see a huge impact. People started to talk about those issues of the demand and the lack of resource. Um, and it was done with a very small number of people and cost us nothing because we just used Twitter to do that. So that was a really positive experience.
Thank you, ma'am. And any remarks or point for better development of whole world police community?
I think it's policing works very differently in different countries, and I found that in sort of the last 10 years where I've done some talks in Europe and even across different countries in Europe, the way police work is very different in lots of respects. So I think the important thing for me from my experience is to really connect with people who you are helping and trying to protect. The more distant the police get from communities, the more problems they're likely to face. If you can understand and work closely with people in communities that you're there to help, then that's got to be the best form of policing.
Thank you, ma'am. One thing I should share with you after, which is a specialty you mark as a great for Manchester Police?
Sorry, I just missed the end of that.
What is which specialty you mark as a great for Manchester Police?
I think, yeah, it's there's been so much, there's been a lot of things that they do well. I think one of the things that they were trying to, and hopefully will continue to hold on to, was having local officers that worked very locally and in an area and got to know people. And we were able to make sure that they would use social media to talk to people in that area, because they can't be everywhere at once, and we were struggling in terms of numbers, but there's lots of opportunities. So I think that was an important part of what happened.
Especially your opinion about growing and growth of Bangladesh, you know that?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing a bit of research before, obviously we spoke, and it's amongst one of the fastest growing for GDP, which I think would surprise a lot of people. So I think there's some big opportunities to talk about what Bangladesh is doing and what people are doing that perhaps isn't getting the attention across the world when it perhaps could. So I think whilst COVID-19's brought many horrible and challenging things, there will be some opportunities come out of this. And I think part of that is the connectivity between countries now and the ability to speak as we are now. Hopefully people will start to learn more about what's going on and the growth that you're experiencing.
Ma'am, now this situation, travel, tourism, aviation, guided community facing a disaster moments, and 100% 100% the property now is closed. Aviation are most of closed. And the lot of industry leaders says that soon they are reopened. But my personal opinion, we are not sure what is next. I want your opinion. How tourism industry overcame this crisis and how they manage their reputation.
Yeah, it's really difficult, and I think, as you say, travel and tourism has been probably one of the most severely affected across the whole world, in every country. I think the difficulty is we get close to what the way things were before, and to get through and develop and kind of rebuild and reestablish tourism and travel, we sort of have to have a blank piece of paper and look at what we want to do and then work it through the challenges that we've got because of the restrictions that people face. I think there's no easy sort of, if we just do this small thing, things will be okay. I think for this travel and tourism industry, it's more fundamental to really try and find how it can operate in a restrictive kind of experience. I'm firmly convinced there are ways it can and it will, but it's going to take some real innovative thought to be able to work that through and come up with the proposals, the plans, and how things will work going forward. But that's what we need to do, isn't it? That's, you know, where we need to be driving change to be able to establish for the future.
Yes, I think you think the right way. You know, last few days, COVID react very badly in Bangladesh. Lot of people now suspected, more than 1 million. This is 1 lakh in our county. You know, what's your situation in this situation? But you know, our government try to do best.
Yeah, I mean, this is the nature, unfortunately, of this virus, that you feel that you can think you are dealing with it really effectively, and then it appears as a spike, an increase somewhere. So that's why we've got to be able to start to think forward to how we live with those problems on an ongoing basis. I think what every government's trying to do is encourage people to do the social distancing, encourage people to not get close to, so that they will share the virus. And also, I think another important element's got to be testing and then tracing contacts, because that's the way you can start to stop the spread, by making sure that people who may have been in contact don't then spread.
Ma'am, you must know the current situation of Beijing. There is a lot of suspected the government fine. China Beijing, and lot of flights, more than 1,200 are closed. Then this is, we think this is the continuous situation. Every country may facing, this is down, go down, and several times it's go up. But the life, how can survive this crisis? You know, in Bangladesh, there is a lot of people are lower in their buying capacity is very low. How they live? How is the suggestion?
For me, yeah, I think I wish there was an easy answer to a lot of this. What my hope would be is that, because everybody in the world, really every country, everybody's been affected by the virus in some way, is that we work more together to help each other, because where some countries may be on top of things really well and, you know, be in control of things, other places won't be. And that's where I think we need to help each other through that, and find ways that, you know, we can share learning and experience and resources, so that we can help people to get through this, because it is, you know, it is going to continue, like you say, to affect people until we get to a point where potentially there's a you know, we got a cure. It is going to be a challenge to keep facing this. But for me, I always say, you know, the way of getting through things is to be working together, and that's got to be beyond country boundaries as well.
Ma'am, in this situation, lot of pupils now jobless. In our country, we are facing same, and more than 1 crore That means it's 10 million. 10 million people, they are now jobless. Now they are jobless. If you close your eyes around the world, lots of people facing very bad situation. What do you think about that? Can we encourage them, or can we help them for from work from home, remote job? What you thinking? Can we help them getting the home-based job or remote job which they can done from home? Is it possible to help the community?
I think so. I think you're right. You know, it is horrendous. It's horrible and horrendous the amount of people who are going to be and are affected by this in terms of their personal circumstances. So I still think, you know, will be there will be an improvement, because you know we've seen, you know, even in the worst economic crises, we get you come through it, you come past and out the other side. The important thing is to try and minimize the amount of people who are really struggling. Again, I still think that's a global response, because every country is going to be affected and will be affected in a similar way, and so we need to help each other through it, and always out of things where, you know, different job sectors will see jobs come and go. There will be new areas that open up, and there will be new opportunities that come. The key is to be able to help people through until that starts to emerge, until that starts to happen.
Just few 2 or 3 questions. You know about community policing?
Yeah.
Okay. Last 10 years, I am doing is my social worker. As a social worker, I am involved with community policing last 10 years. I do a lot of things, and you know, this community policing is very effective for control the community. What is your opinion for that? Is it well or not?
I think community policing has got to be a sort of mutual respect relationship. So it shouldn't be oppressive, and it shouldn't be controlling in a negative way, because it's more about working with people so that they can help to keep their community, their area safe. And, you know, and that means they've got to have confidence in the police, that they will be supporting them. So that's the way I would like to see it, is that it's more about a positive relationship, and then you get that sort of, you know, that support, because people want to.
Community policing, this is like a bridge between police and civil people, local people. This is the
Yeah,
bridge.
yeah, really,
I
you would
think.
want it to be a way that people could access the police and get in, you know, in touch with the police, and particularly if they wouldn't want to, if they were concerned about doing that, then it's a way that might be more comfortable for them to do through community police.
Ma'am, I have a specific question to you. That is, your published book
Mm.
only getting in UK. Why not it is in Bangladesh? why you are not giving it to Bangladesh for our reader, for our researcher, for our author, or who want to like to read the books, experience book. Why not you come and in our market, book market?
I thought well, the book is available worldwide. It should be available worldwide. I know it was launched in America and Canada slightly later than the rest of the UK, etc. But if that isn't the case, I will find out. I will speak to my publishers, and I will make sure if we can't get them any other way, I will send you a copy. I promise.
Not for me, for all Bangladeshis. We have a lot online book selling company. So you can easily make a contact with them. And I know this value when you published, you written on as a social media, every day I read this, and valuable knowledge or some topics I getting from there.
I will make sure.
Okay, ma'am, any advice for our travel and tourism industry?
Yeah, I think it's to try and focus on some of the positives. So there will be, after this, opportunities. There will be, and like I said, there's it's such a growth country. There's so much going on that there's some big opportunities. I think the issue is going to be finding how that will operate effectively, how that can work when we've potentially still got some restrictions or some curtailment, or something that makes it more challenging to travel than we've been used to. But I think the key has to be to just work through and find that new way of working, that will continue. Travel and tourism has been such a part of our lives for so many years now.
Yes.
That it won't go away. I think it might just change how it looks, and that's the bit that we need to be working through now.
Ma'am, another question, and that is, are you thinking COVID-19 disaster destroy world economy very soon, or China own the PowerPoint? What's your opinion?
I think it will have a significant impact, as we are seeing on world economies, and I think that's every country will be experiencing it in some way, because of the nature of lockdowns and the restrictions. But we all have to remember, times pass, and we will be through this at some point. This will pass, so there will be a recovery. It's just when and how that happens. But we've seen in history, when there's a terrible economic crisis, you do come through it.
If we thinking the economical structure is a car, then total battery is dead. Now we need to change the battery. Then again we need to start to calm this the growth. Every country failed the growth.
Yeah.
Ma'am, you are the chair of PRCA Council. Just we want to know what is the PRC Council, and if you share some little bit with us.
Yeah, well, that was actually in 2019. I was the chair of the PRCA Council. Now, that's the Public Relations and Communications Association. It's one of two PR and communications industry bodies that exist. And they don't just exist in the UK. The PRCA has has international links, and it works in lots of different countries. And what it aims to do is bring people together who are involved in PR and communications work, whether that's working within a business or for themselves or as part of an agency. And it shares knowledge and experience. It provides training, and it looks at how to improve the work that PR and communications people are doing. And importantly, it has a code of ethics. So it makes sure that people are working in a responsible and ethical way as well. So if you, as a member, that's what you know you need to do, is to be working in that way. And that gives people who are going to work with you some reassurance about how you work and what you do.
Last question, your future plan.
Wow. Yeah, I'm very, it's a big thing. At the moment, I think we're all living week to week almost, aren't we? You know, it's difficult to make long-term plans because of uncertainties, but I'm just looking to continue the business that I've got now, work with more companies and businesses, and help them as much as I can when they're at a time of crisis and when they're struggling. And I would like to think that I have got another book possibly at some point soon. I've got ideas for another book which I'd like to hope that I can write at some point.
We will, from Bangladesh, we will jointly work with Amanda Crisis Communications, so that both country, both company is jointly develop the experience, the crisis, or whatever it is. We share and we jointly work. Thank you. Be with us, ma'am.
Thank you.
And closing remarks, if you want to say.
No, I just thank you so much for the opportunity. I think I've learned a lot about Bangladesh, not just from the speaking to you, but also from doing some research before. And I think, you know, if people just remember, difficult times are with us, unfortunately, but they will pass. And for me, there is an opportunity for us to, as you say, share learning, share experiences, and you know, the world should really hopefully come together a bit more in the face of this challenge.
Thank you, ma'am. Viewer, today is really great, honorable day for me and our company, and for Bangladesh's people. You you all are now know the experienced author Amanda Coleman. She wrote a books, her experience, 20 years experience knowledge, he kept her books. So please search online and getting your copy as soon as possible. We are very much happy and welcoming your cooperation. So you can apply for books from online. And thank you, ma'am. From myself, I want to say I want to deeply work with your organization. You know, we are facing a lot of disaster moment, crisis moment every year in our country facing. So it is the golden field. You getting your more knowledge, and you can wrote a new book for us when you come to Bangladesh. And again I want to say, I welcoming you. Please pay your visit in Bangladesh, and I am your local host in Bangladesh. Viewers, for today I want to say goodbye, but now this goodbye is not for today. Today we are come with Egypt. Watch us. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
See you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.